It's well documented that 80% of digital transformation and other change initiatives fail. And the key here is that it's not a technology issue that causes failure, it's actually a leadership issue. I'm going to explain what that means here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent tech-agnostic consulting firm that helps executives and leaders with their digital transformation initiatives. And with the 80% failure rate that we see with digital and business transformations, it's easy to assume that it must have something to do with technology, it must have something to do with the methodology that's being used, it must have something to do with our employees, but none of that is true. It actually comes down to a leadership style called command and control. However, surprisingly, I'm not here to tell you that command and control is a bad thing. I'm here to tell you and talk about why a lack of command and control is actually creating turmoil and chaos and problems with digital transformations. It's actually the root cause of why so many projects fail. It may not be cool to talk about this topic, and it is not consistent with most business school concepts and societal norms around flat leadership and servant leadership and more democratized leadership styles. But that's part of the problem, is that we have lost sight of a leadership style that can actually help in times of turmoil and change, and that's what I'll talk about in this video. If you're leading a digital transformation or ERP initiative and you want to avoid the costly mistakes that most organizations make, that's where Third Stage Consulting comes in. We are an independent and technology advisory firm, meaning that we don't sell software, we don't take commissions from vendors. Our only job is to protect your interests and be on your side. We help executives and project teams plan, deliver, and recover digital transformations and ERP projects, reducing risk, improving adoption, and delivering real business value. If you want clarity before you commit to your digital strategy, or if something feels off track to you, feel free to reach out to us at thirdstage-consulting.com, and my team and I would be happy to help. Command and control is something that's not commonly discussed in today's leadership literature. In fact, it's oftentimes frowned upon or viewed as a relic from the past. I know when I was getting my master's in business, it was viewed as somewhat okay, but it was at the time in the 90s when flat leadership styles or flat hierarchies, more democratized leadership styles, and servant leadership was really starting to emerge. And so over the years, I think we've lost sight of some of the value of command and control. And I think we're starting to feel the consequences of that lack of leadership style in today's transformation initiatives. So to understand what it is, let's talk about what it's not. Command and control leadership styles do not involve unanimous decision-making. It doesn't involve necessarily taking everyone's opinion into account. It doesn't necessarily mean that we take a long time to make decisions until we all agree on a common answer. This is true for a lot of decisions that need to be made in business, but it's not true when we're in a command and control leadership style. What command and control is instead, even though it has a negative connotation, is that it involves strong leadership, strong decision-making, strong vision, strong authority, and that's what's missing from a lot of digital transformations and other change initiatives. So think of command and control as one extreme leadership style that's suitable in some instances, especially when it involves uncertainty, change, and the need to move quickly. Other types of leadership styles, like servant leadership and more democratized leadership styles, are more relevant for innovation and building a strong culture and that sort of thing. But you really need both of those styles to come together at different times in your business journeys. So what I want to talk about throughout this video is why command and control and the lack thereof is hurting digital transformations, and how you can introduce pieces of command and control in a way that will help your project be more successful and to help you avoid some of the failure points and risks that so many projects face. So the more consensus-based leadership styles that are more common in today's culture, and they're more commonly taught in today's business schools, and more emerging leaders are on board with this consensus-based leadership style, there are some significant weaknesses with it that I'm going to come back to here in a moment. But the situation where consensus-based leadership works the best is in stable environments, where you have an organization that has a clear direction, they've already worked through a lot of turmoil, transition, and chaos, and they're not necessarily a mature organization, but they are humming on all cylinders. They're moving forward, they're trying to be innovative, they're trying to improve the business and fine-tune it. That's where consensus-based leadership can be so successful, when we have clearly defined roles, we have clearly defined strategies, and we have a clear vision of what it is we're expected to do. That's where the more consensus-based leadership comes into play. Now, where consensus-based leadership breaks is when you're going through times of turmoil or change, when you're trying to change things, when you're completely overhauling your business model, you're completely overhauling people's jobs and roles and responsibilities. That's where the consensus-based leadership breaks, because for a few reasons. One is you get a lot of resistance to change when you're going through change, so it's impossible to get consensus on what the changes should be. But secondly, people don't necessarily understand why we're changing and what direction we need to go to make the change possible. So in other words, we need stronger leadership to guide us and to provide more direction and decisiveness. And the way this manifests itself during transformation initiatives is that decisions slow things down. There's one well-documented research study that shows that the number one cause of digital transformation and change initiative delays is because of decision latency or slow decision making. In other words, you have a plan to do things within a certain amount of time, but you assume decisions will happen fast as one of the assumptions of that plan, when in reality, decisions are going to get elongated. And this is a symptom of having too much consensus-based leadership. It's slowing down your decision making, it's costing you more money, and it's creating a lot of chaos and failure points for these projects. I'll give you one good example of where we commonly see this consensus-based leadership breakdown is even if you just look at something as simple as business versus IT priorities and decision points. Technologists, your internal IT department may prefer to have one single ERP system that can do everything in one platform because it makes their jobs easier, it's more scalable from a technical perspective, it's more manageable, and it's more cost-effective in some cases from a pure technical perspective. Your operations, on the other hand, may find that that model doesn't work because they need more flexibility. They need more options to introduce their secret sauce and the things that make their business unique as an organization to be more successful. And those two things are in conflict. And if you let those people play out that conflict during a transformation, A, is it's going to slow down your project, and B, you're never going to come to a consensus anyway, no matter how long you take. So that's an example of how consensus-based leadership can break down and completely derail these sorts of projects. So what I want to talk about next is how you can introduce pieces of command and control in a way that helps offset some of these risks of consensus-based leadership. One way to think about the value of command and control style leadership is to think about high stress, high pressure, high stakes situations. You think about a war, or you think about a health crisis or an emergency room in a hospital. In those cases, you don't have time to sit around a table and pontificate and discuss pros and cons and come to a common consensus on what the right answer is. If you're at war, you don't have time. You don't have time to decide whether or not it makes sense to go on the defensive or what type of military strategy we want to pursue. There might be opportunities to get input from some, but someone at the top is going to have to make a decision whether the rest of the team likes it or not, knowing that they've taken input from the rest of the team, and ultimately that leader needs to make that decision. And the same is true for transformation. If we view transformation as just a simple IT upgrade, then this is a non-issue. But the reality is transformation projects typically involve a lot more than just technology. They typically involve complete overhauls of the business model, complete overhauls of the IT infrastructure, complete overhauls and reengineering of people's jobs, roles, and responsibilities. In some cases, there might be layoffs or attrition or reassignments of jobs as a result of technology. So there's a lot of change and turmoil that comes along with these projects. And if we rely too much on consensus-based leadership, it's going to turn into a mess. There's going to be a lack of clarity. Change of management is going to be a problem. And at the end of the day, the project will fail and executives will be unhappy with the mess that's left behind. And this is why introducing more command and control leadership styles selectively within a transformation can be so effective. And I'll talk about some examples next of ways you can introduce command and control style leadership without completely changing your culture or demoralizing your team. So how does adding command and control leadership potentially affect the way you tackle your transformation initiative? Well, first, you have to have executive ownership. No matter what the change initiative it is, whether it's a IT initiative, a business process change, a organizational reorg, a merger and acquisition integration, whatever it is, you need strong executive ownership into the project. You also need strong executive decision-making, which means executives are going to have to make decisions, in some cases, detailed operational decisions that no one else wants to make or no one else can make. You may feel like you could delegate all these decisions down to your project team, and a lot of leaders do that, but that leadership team is not going to naturally come to the consensus that you would, knowing that you're the one that is leading this organization through the change. And again, this is where it's important to remember this is not just a tech upgrade. This is a business transformation and a business overhaul that will materially affect your business, and it materially introduces risk into your business during the transformation, which is why command and control elements can be so beneficial. So if there are two pieces of advice I'd leave you with as it relates to how to introduce command and control into your organization, it would be first to think of it as a trust but verify approach. You still want to rely on your project team to make decisions and recommendations, but you also want to verify that they're making the right decisions that align with the strategy and the vision that you've set for the organization. And there are going to be times where you need to override them, and that's okay. Having clarity and strong vision is going to be a lot more powerful than having more consensus-based driven lack of clarity and confusion. And then the second thing to remember is that command and control is not something you just flip a switch on and suddenly you're a command and control organization that doesn't listen to your employees. That's not true. What I'm saying is you might want to lean heavier on the command and control leadership style while you're going through the transformation, knowing that you can throttle that back and revert back to your normal leadership style when things are more stable and things are business as usual. But I'm curious to hear from you. What do you think about leadership styles and how it affects organizational ability to navigate change effectively? How do you think leadership styles influence or affect failure rates within transformation initiatives? I'd love to hear your feedback below based on your experience or what you're going through right now. And if you'd like to learn more about lessons from 1,000+ different transformation initiatives that we've helped our clients through, I encourage you to read our ebook called Lessons from 1,000 Transformations. You can find that by scanning the QR code right here or go to the links below. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day. Command and control leadership styles are not unanimous, or styles are not unanimous. God.